ultra HNI means, ultra wealthy individuals who can put in 30 crore, 50 crore to own the office unit. And because you're owning a hard property, a hard asset, your downside risk is limited.
Hey everyone, this is Minesh and welcome back to another episode of Modernizing Biz Podcast. On this episode, we have Shiv with us. Shiv is one of the founder of HBits. She has a very tremendous experience in the field of real estate, and he's also been educated from Harvard and Stanford. Let's hear from Shiv how is the journey look like when he was in his early college days. Hi Shiv, how are you doing?
Hi, doing well, Minish. Thanks a lot for having me on the podcast.
Yeah, super
Uh,
excited. Yes,
no,
please.
great. So I mean, thanks for that introduction. Um, so yeah, the journey at Stanford and Harvard was a great, amazing experience. Obviously, very grateful to have been able to attend such uh, you know
Hmm.
good schools. So I studied physics at Stanford, and then I did my MBA at Harvard. And in fact, both those schools are very different to each other in itself as well. Um,
Yeah.
so Stanford obviously is, in the heart of Silicon Valley. A lot of startups, it have come from Stanford. In fact, person living in the house next to me was the founder of Snapchat. So interacting with such kind of people obviously, enables you to always think about different ideas that are present and that are bubbling in Silicon Valley. I think
Right.
what's really great about Stanford is that it's very very meritocratic. So it's just the best idea that prevails. It has nothing to do with where you're coming from, what your background is. As long as you have a good idea, that's what's prevailed. I mean, in fact, coming from India and then coming from, I also did my boarding school in the UK, but still that's also very similar. But in Stanford, when you went there, even your professors, even your most respected professors, you would still call them by their first name.
Yeah.
There's no concept of sir, no concept of Mr. This, Mr. That. And so I think what that does is that puts everyone on the same playing field, and ultimately it's what someone says, what idea they have, how they justify their idea. That's what really prevails, and I think that is what's really led to so many new startups bubbling out of Silicon Valley. Um,
Amazing.
yeah, yeah.
So, Shiv, one thing I'm curious about this that, to be honest, frankly, I'm not that kind of person. My parents would have told me they would love if I have got into a Stanford or an Ivy League college like Harvard and Stanford. But let's hear from you, like, what's the one thing unique, right? Why this in India we have IIM, and there
Mhm.
we have in the world we have Harvard and Stanford. So, what's the unique they have? And that they are like producing entrepreneurs at a tons, and all of them are mostly the successful ones, right? So according to you, want to highlight like what's one thing that they are developing on that other universities don't have, and that's the unique thing about them.
So yeah, one thing I said like is this very idea driven, best idea wins. Other is it's this concept of thinking from first principles.
Hmm.
So it's not really about copying someone else or someone else has done this, so you should do the same thing. It's more about really understanding, the way something is done, why it's done. So even when you're creating your own startup, for instance, what I learned there in terms of first principle thinking is that say you're setting up your recruitment policy. Now, obviously, you learn from other companies, learn from what they're doing. Maybe you recruit through various recruiting portals or through recruitment agencies, but then you have to understand that why why different decisions are made. You have to really think that what works for you, what works for the situation you are in, and that kind of questioning is really prevalent in Stanford. At Harvard, in fact, what we had was, the way they teach. I did my MBA there, and the way they teach is through the case study method. So the way
Wow.
that works is that you read a case. Case could be of some business problem. The business problem could be in finance, it could be in marketing, it could be in leadership, it could be in operations, it could be in accounting. Um, and then at the end of the case, you have to read the case before class. And then the professor will cold call one student. And there's always a protagonist in the case. The professor will choose one student and say, "What would you do if you were in that
Hmm.
situation?"
Wow.
Uh, so that puts you right in the center of any business problem, any business situation. And that's all the classes are only cases. And in these classes, obviously you're surrounded by students who've come from various backgrounds. They work in finance, consulting, startups, technology, banks. They've all come from varied experiences. And in these classes, the professor only talks maybe 20 or 30% of the time. 70% of the time, it's opinions given by your various classmates. So you're not learning from one person. You're learning from 90 other people who are in your class who've had, come from different backgrounds, different ages, different countries. And so I think that really obviously leads to a lot of ideas and knowledge sharing.
Amazing. And you really put in a nice manner that the part of the questioning that is necessary, right? So what do you
Hmm.
think? So like in entire journey of building HBits and your previous work experiences till now, as an entrepreneur, what's the importance of questioning in general in our day-to-day operation, right? In India, we don't have that tendency. We don't ask few simple questions where's the crux of everything, right? The what,
Yeah.
how, when. So what do you think? So like if you want to highlight with a case.
Yeah, no, so I think it's the most important thing, right? Even when we started HBits, you had to understand that why people invest and how they invest and what drives them to invest. We are an investment platform at the end of the day. We are fractionalizing real estate investment. But our
Yeah.
investors have, a lot of other options to invest. They can invest in equity, they can invest in debt, they can invest in FD, they can invest in they can buy a residential apartment. So you have to answer the question that why would they invest in this product? Why
Okay.
would they choose to invest over here? And then the other question becomes, okay, when does a person decide to invest? One is obviously in terms of what age bracket, what is the demographic profile of someone who's investing, but other is, in the span of time, what mood does the person have to be in when he's investing?
Hmm.
Accordingly, we decide when to call them. We have to figure out that okay, who are the key decision makers when someone decides to invest. So most of our investors obviously are slightly older. They're probably 35 years plus. So most of
Okay.
them are married.
Right.
So generally this decision is always made by two people, husband and wife, not just by one person. So understanding those things, seeing what drives people to invest. Now investment obviously is not just about returns, it's also about building trust. So how do you make sure that you're communicating trust to your investors and make sure that you're a trustworthy platform? So figuring out what people want and then providing it for them. And you really question
Amazing.
deeply as to figure out what people want.
Okay, amazing. And I like to add one thing to this is that it need to be backed with a lot of market research and analysis, and that's
Absolutely.
where it makes with a killer plan, and that's where we find out that it's going to be the working mode, right? Want to get deep,
Absolutely.
Shiv, into the journey of HBits, right? When the idea emergence happened, when you got to know that this is the one thing, and this is the problem. Again, the questioning part. When you got
Hmm.
this question in your mind, because the most crucial part in the while conversating with you I find out is the question, and so when you question that why this space, why the
Yeah.
space of fractional ownership.
So yeah, I'd come back from my MBA at Harvard, and before my MBA, I'd in fact already had set up another business which was into co-working.
Yeah.
So I had a few co-working spaces around the city, but because I went to Harvard, I didn't really expand. By the time I came back to India, so before I went, WeWork was not in the market. There were just one or two other
Right.
players. When I came back from my MBA, WeWork had entered the market. They had really advertised aggressively about co-working,
Oh
and there
my
were
god.
300
Yeah.
other copycat players also. So it was a very crowded market. It didn't make sense to expand that business. So I was looking for other ideas. I had the entrepreneurship bug. I knew I wanted to start something. So in fact, I explored various different ideas. This wasn't the only one that came to mind at that point in time.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but this, was really exciting. It was very interesting proposition because there was value on two sides, not just the investor, but also on the developer or seller of the asset side. So I'll
Okay.
explain you what I mean by that. So see, what we do is you have these commercial office properties. Predominantly they are in the top six cities: your Mumbai,
Mm.
Pune, Bangalore, Hyderabad, Chennai, and NCR. So in Mumbai, they would be in BKC or Andheri. In Bangalore, they could be in ORR. In Delhi, they could be in Gurgaon. And these are large glass facade office buildings where you have tenants like Deloitte, Amazon, Accenture, ICICI Bank who sit out of that and they'll rent that office space.
Right.
Now, traditionally, a developer will build the building, and this is very different from residential. This is in commercial. So, developer will build the building, and he or she will rent it out to these tenants. Now, after building the building, he or she will then sell it to either they'll sell the whole building to a fund, which is like a global fund that will buy the building for 1,000, 2,000 crore, or they'll sell floor by floor or office unit by office unit to ultra HNI investors. Ultra HNI means ultra wealthy individuals who can put in 30 crore, 50 crore to own the office unit. Now,
Right.
developer wants to exit because he's done his job. He's built the building. Now he wants to take money out and put it in buying new land and building a new building. Why does someone else buy it? Someone else buys it because it's an investment. It's a safe investment. You get 8 to 9% rental yield,
Hmm.
and along with appreciation, you can make a 15 odd percent IRR. But I saw that all these great buildings, great properties, where you have good return potential, minimal risk, is owned by either very wealthy individuals or large funds. So the thought was that why can't individual investors own part of this property? Why can't they own a share in the property? And on the flip side, then I did an analysis on what all investment options are there for individual investors.
Right.
And there's nothing in the middle. You either have bonds or FDs, which now in today's market maybe 6+%, and that's it. There's no upside potential. It's 6% is what you will get. On the other hand, you have equity where you can make 18%, 20% returns, but you can also make 0%. You can also make minus 100% and lose all your money. So why can't you have something secure? Why can't you own part of a property that you make, again, like I'm saying, 8 to 9% rental that's backed with good contracts with grade A tenants? So you're creating value on the seller and creating value on the buyer. And that's where that idea was born out of, that why can't you own a share or a fraction in a property? And then obviously make it
Amazing.
completely tech enabled.
Okay, so that's where the origin of HBits happened, right? So I want to go deep about fractional ownership that you touched the point. If you want to explain fractional ownership to, let's take an example, a teenage, let's say 14-year-old, right? So how you gonna do it? I know that's not the target market, but from the awareness point of view, if you want to highlight, so how you want to sum up in a very simple terms how fractional ownership works?
So see, simple terms is you can own a share in Tata stock or Reliance stock. You become a part owner in that company, and whatever returns that company generates, you get the upside either through dividend or through the price
Yeah.
appreciation in that stock. Now, why can't you own a share in a building to make the returns associated by owning the building? That's all it is. Um, you're owning a share in a large building because the large building costs too much for you to put your individual money in. It's like 50 crore, 100 crore, so you can put 25 lakh and own part of the property.
Hmm.
um, and then the question becomes, okay, why this investment and not that investment? Which is where you
Perfect.
you know you have good tenants, you have 8 to 9
Hmm.
percent rental yield, while in residential you only get 2 to 3%. So
Yeah, amazing. So wanna go deep? Like we got to know like what's fractional ownership. I'll put it in a very more simple terms. Like let's take an example. There's a chocolate which has been divided by among three people. We're gonna tell it,
correct.
right? So
Yeah,
everyone could get the good taste of it, right? That's what we used to do
exactly,
it in schools. But
exactly.
want to know the ROI plan, right? Let's take an example.
Mhm.
If let's take an example, a person is earning 30 lakhs annually or have 30 lakhs that is investable amount. So they have
Yeah,
got multiple options, right? If we can sum up few of multiple options, they either go and invest, they can plan a gold, they can invest in a real estate land, buy a flat or something like that. Flat buying 30 lakhs pretty tough in tier 1 cities, but they're gonna invest in tier 2, tier 3 cities, right? Something
correct.
like that. They have plan for stock market. So what's the plan with fractional ownership? Let's say 30 lakhs. So what is good, what can be an ROI in upcoming 3 4 years, and how it's gonna
Yeah.
look like?
So in fractional ownership, there are again two ways you get your return, right? One is the rent that's coming from the tenant, and other is after a whole period, the property appreciates, say in 4 5 6 years whenever we sell the asset. So generally, generally you get 8 to 9% rental yield. So on a yearly basis, but we give it on a monthly basis. So 8 to 9% divided by 12, you'll get that from the rental. And then in 4 to 6 years, when we exit the full property, uh, that appreciation will generally be 5 to 7%. or year on year what your
Okay.
property will
Yeah.
appreciate.
Yeah. Yeah.
So total IRR is, you say 8% plus 5% is 13%. So
Hmm.
13 to 18% is what you can get approximately, depending on how well the property performs. But the other
Amazing.
important part is that 8 to 9% you're getting because there's a long-term contract with like an ICICI or a
Hmm.
Deloitte, and because you're owning a hard property, a hard asset, your downside risk is limited.
Okay. So it's going to ensure the longevity. Like this company is gonna stay. They are not dying the
Exactly.
next year. They're gonna survive the all economic crunches and the crisis that's
Correct.
gonna happen. Amazing.
Exactly.
So going deep once again into the real estate, since you are into real estate market from a very long time operating, and now you probably are into the ecosystem, and then so
Right.
according to you, what do you find and what do you think? So real estate is still is overpriced in India. If you wanna sum up city wise or region wise, so people also feel that like for investment perspective, the stocks and everything is like not good. If you have a good amount, go and invest in real estate. That's where the safety lies, and that's where the upside
Hmm.
is for
Hmm.
investment and return over investment. What's your thought on this, and what do you think? So
On your question of real estate being
real estate,
overpriced.
right? Yeah, yeah.
So see that perception of real estate being overpriced. It was there in the market, but that was in residential real estate. It's a very different market, commercial real estate and residential real estate. Residential real estate is where you're buying your apartments and flats. And yes, there was a big overpricing of residential flats, pre-COVID,
Agree.
and lot of unsold inventory in places like Lower Parel, even Noida.
Hmm.
But that was the perception. But again, even in residential, that's not the market we play in. We are in commercial, which is office space, warehouses. But even in residential, that has changed. That has changed during COVID, because there was a lot of, government gave a stamp duty cut. Then it was at that point in time in 2020, 21, there was the lowest interest rate environment. Uh, so you could get home loans for cheap. So a lot of people thought that if you're ever going to buy an apartment or buy our home, this is the best time to buy it because the prices will never get cheaper from here. And at that point, developers are also saying, okay, let's sell right now at whatever price. So that correction and that stabilization in residential has happened. But commercial is a very different market.
Yeah.
Coming to your other point, in commercial real estate, there's been there it's not driven. The end user is not the buyer of the property is not the one who's sitting in the property, right? In commercial, it's the someone is renting it, and someone else, the investor, is owning the property.
Wow. Yeah.
So over there, there was a great growth in office demand in India, and it's still continuing even after this COVID. COVID, where there was a little bit work from home. Reason being is that India is the back office of the full world.
Hmm.
So you know all the back office of the full world is coming from India, and with your rupee also depreciating, on a per dollar per square foot number, the office space in India is still cheap. So your vacancy in office space is very low. So there's very little office space available if a large tenant comes in, and that's why the price of office space will keep rising.
Amazing. So this journey gonna look like for upcoming 5 years? Correct
Yeah,
me if I'm wrong. Yeah.
definitely. No, definitely.
Cool, amazing. Now let's take an example towards going on the end of the podcast. One thing that I'm really curious to know about it. So, with your project HBits, do you consider expanding into tier 3 cities? What's your thought on that? And what's the scope of commercial real estate in tier 3, tier 2 market? Currently, tier 1 is the one that is gonna be stay, right, where the big companies will focus. Like let's take an example. They want to shift their backend on these cities. What's your thoughts on tier 2 and tier 3 expansion plans?
So for HBits, right now we are concentrating in the next 1 year on tier one cities in terms of properties, which is basically like I mentioned, Mumbai, Pune, Bangalore,
Hmm.
Hyderabad, Chennai, and NCR. But our customers come from everywhere. Our customers come from tier one cities, tier two cities, tier three cities. Because the beauty of it is that the full investment is made completely online. 30% of our customers are NRI. They're not even living in India.
Wow.
But digitally, they're investing. They can see the property details online. They'll see the photos, video walkthrough. Um, the full transaction is online in terms of payment, signing through digital signatures. You can track your real estate portfolio on the platform the same way you track your stock portfolio, and then you can exit your share on the platform also. So our customers are sitting anywhere and everywhere across the world, and even in tier two, tier three cities, like you said, someone who has 30 lakh to invest, there are more than enough people even in tier two and tier three cities. That's because the overall Indian economy is growing. So people have made money and now they want to save and invest that money.
Amazing. Thanks a lot, Shiv, for putting a lot of insights on the real estate market and HBits. It was great conversating with you. Looking forward to see the lot of investments coming down again from tier three, tier two cities. That's where I think the economy is gonna flourish, according to me.
Absolutely.
Right. Hope you enjoyed the conversation. Hope the audience will get tons of value out of this conversation.
No, it was great. Thanks. Thanks a lot, Manish. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.